Welcome back to the Paddle and Fin Podcast Network. We're brought to you by Pelican, built tough for all situations. Go to pelican.com. Yak Gadget, for all your fine kayak fishing accessory needs. Go to yakgadget.com. Eastport Marina, on the beautiful shores of Dale Hollow Lake, for all your lodging, kayaking, and fishing needs. Go to eastport.info. Now let's get this show started.
What's going on, everybody? Matt and Brad over at the Final Cast. Brad, how you doing today?
Good, man. How you doing?
Oh, living the dream as always. One more day closer to going down to Dale Hollow, getting to fish in the paddle fin event. It's gonna be fun.
Heck yeah, I'm excited, dude. It's gonna be fun.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be a good time.
Sorry, guys, my voice is a little rough again. So
yeah, I was about to say week 2 of the raspiness. I don't know. I think it kind of dignifies you a little bit, makes you a little bit more of a sound a little older, a little bit more mature.
Heck yeah! Instead of like this.
Yeah. Oh Lord, you can be the Bill Dance of kayak fishing.
I'm all right with that. I'd do that. That sounds fun.
You just got to flip your kayak a couple more times.
Yeah, I'm sure that'll happen.
Oh, let's hope it doesn't happen in deep water. Yeah, getting tired of the rain, I can tell you that. But this week we've got Aaron Stiger from St Croix.
Aaron
Stiger. Talk about some Stiger. Sorry, I apologize, but Aaron. How are you doing?
I'm good, Brad. I think your voice makes you sound more like Nickelback and Creed than...
That's awful.
No, I like Nickelback and
Oh Lord, you're one of the only ones.
I've been there and done that, man. Teaching, talking all day.
Yeah.
It happens. So I'm not judging you at all on your voice. Sounds just fine to me.
All right.
Yeah.
Sorry. Don't worry. Aaron won't judge you, and I'll just, berate you later. So it's fine. No worries.
Yeah, just like old times. It's all good.
Oh yeah, nothing's changed. But yeah, so we're here this week. We're talking to Aaron about some St. Croix stuff, some of the rods that are out, kind of getting his opinions on those. So I know, Brad, we're both super interested in kind of talking. We can just start off right. What we were wanting to talk about is the Victory rods, the Victory line. I've got a chance to fish with them. Awesome rods. What can you tell us about the Victory series?
Yeah, no. So, I've had a chance to fish them as well. And it's like a upgraded Mojo bass, and it's something completely new. It's the best way I can describe it. It's just light. And Matt, if you've had it in your hand, and I know Brad, I think you picked one up over at the Columbus show, just checking it out too. But the thing you'll notice is they're just so much lighter. So right now I have a full set of the blue rods, the Legend Tournament Bass rods, and they're great rods. They do literally everything I could ask them to do. But the Victory rods, they have a very similar sensitivity, but it just feels like they're half as light. And quite literally, they almost are half as light. And so, St. Croix just really accomplished that with a new carbon blend that they have. There you go. You got it right up there. Yep. The SC6 and SC3 combined. And so by putting that SC6 on there, what they've created is what they call Sc3 Plus. And so literally just what that is they've maintained the sensitivity of that SC3. Like I said, that Mojo, because Mojo line's SC3. But then they just made it lighter. And so quite literally the way I kind of just describe it best is just a very light Mojo bass rod. And it's priced just slightly above the Mojo series. You can see there it's 180, whereas the Mojo starts like around 150 or whatnot. So, and honestly, like if you're looking for that just a little bit of upgrade or a little bit less fatigue on the water, which quite honestly, like I find myself, if you're casting all day long, that's where a rod like Victory will come into play. And honestly, I've fished with it. They're sensitive as I need. Obviously St. Croix has levels and levels up, but it's kind of that sweet spot between value and utility and quality. It's kind of blending all of those three things. And, when you look at, IPC and ART and FRS and TET, those are all basically from the curve to the modulus to, the strength of it to the resin on top. You don't see all of those different little acronyms they have until you get to very high level rods. And the cool thing is they've included all of that technology within, a $200 rod. And that's pretty cool. But really what Victory is it's got the bass angler in mind, to be quite honest with you. And if you look at their actual offerings, and a lot of them, they're going so fast. I actually wanted to order some 2 weeks ago, and they were out of almost all of them. And so I have to wait until like June to get them.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, I know all about that pain. I literally just tried to put in an order like a week and a half ago to replace a couple rods, and I was deeply saddened.
Yes.
I ran to Field and Stream as quick as I could, and I literally watched the last medium extra fast casting rod walk out as I walked in. It was
What kind were you gonna get?
The Victory. I was gonna switch out one of my jerkbait rods because I have the Blue Series, the Legend that you're talking about. I've got a couple of those, and I've had it for a jerkbait rod for a while. Super sensitive, but in all honesty, because how you explained it, everything that goes into this rod. When I first saw it, I kind of thought it was the bridge between the Mojo and the Avid or the Avid X.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's how, when I first picked one up, first casted it, I was like, well, this has got to just be an Avid X bridge. And I kind of found of someone I have a couple Avid X's for my heavier applications. I fished with a Victory heavy. Yeah. Fast action, just your standard heavy. And
what length on it? 7.3?
The 7.3. Yep.
Yeah.
It's a 7.3. And I was like, well, let's see if how this feels compared to my Avid X 7. I think my Avid X is a 7.4.
Yeah.
It's like an extra inch, which, I mean, comparable still. And I like exactly what you said. That's what I was going to say. I have the same sensitivity that I have with an Avid X, which is crazy to me for a rod that's about, anywhere from $20 to $40 cheaper.
Yeah.
But it's so much lighter. It literally feels, yeah. And the way the parabolic bend is set up to where it has the same bend points, it has the same, the majority of the strength in that heavies all the way up the blank, just like the Avid X with a heavier application. I mean, this was one of the best, and I've been using the tournaments for a long time. The Blue Series you talked about.
Yep.
That's always been my go-to rod, and I'm not gonna lie, I have some Mega Bass rods just because I'm a JDM fangirl. But St. Croix has always been my go-to rods for sensitivity, and the Victories are some of the best. I mean, with the light applications, I can say all day long, I would have no problem fishing that next to a Tournament Legend, and you're not going to see a huge difference.
No, and the crazy thing is when you say that, like the lighter applications, I actually still use my Mojo Basses like only for my spinning setups. I have Legend Tournament bass rods that are spinning setups. I don't know what it is. I just like the feel of those Mojos still, and I think that you kind of hit on it. Even talking about Mega Bass, it's and Brad, you're fishing Douglas, and I'm sure those are great rods too. And the thing about it is like it's whatever rods I guess kind of you're comfortable with and how it suits your fishing style. Because I've fished. I picked up a St. Croix. I think it was in 2014. I bought 3 Avids back in 2014, and I was just blown away because I'd only ever fished like Berkeley, like all that kind of stuff. Which lightning those rods, by the way. But when I invested a little bit of money into it, I couldn't believe it, and I had initially bought those for like saugeye fishing and over at Indian Lake and everything. And it was just, but then when I started bass fishing with them is when they really started to shine. And I wasn't affiliated with anything at that point. And so I had bought some other high-end brands of rods after that. And I almost comparatively, you know, I compared their sensitivity and their action and how I wanted to fish. And I just ended up really liking St. Croix. And honestly, that's kind of where I'm so glad that I've landed here. And it wasn't always that way. So what I ended up doing was you know, back when I was getting way into the kayak thing, and I think a lot of us do this, is we end up getting into a product that maybe we shouldn't get into, as far as like something we don't really believe in all the
Yeah.
time. I mean, I was the worst probably at that back around 2014, but I had joined up with a different rod company, and it wasn't that those rods were subpar or anything, but they weren't what I needed in the way I fished, and I found myself not ultimately happy. And so what I ended up doing is leaving that team, because that was kind of a turning point for me, where I realized I need to just be using things that I want to use that make me effective on the water. And that's what basically at that point is what I started the mindset of, okay, if I'm not using it, I'm not going to represent it. So I ended up selling those rods off and just bought all my St. Croix that I have now. And I mean, like I said, I bought the whole lineup of the Legend Tournament bass rods for my casting setups, and then a whole set of them of Mojos for my spinning setups. And I've had those now for probably 4 years, I think. And you know, I used to manage that Jackson kayak team, and one of the guys on there was pretty in with St. Croix, and you know, luckily it was just a matter of an introduction, because he's been on the St. Croix team for 20 years. And it was one of those things where just a word of mouth, and I was just at the right place at the right time, knowing the right people. But even if I wasn't on the St. Croix team, and that's what I told the guy, I was like, I don't really need to be on the team. Honestly, I'm going to fish the rods regardless. I don't mind paying retail for them at all. And even on the team, I think I might have bought 2 or 3 rods. It's not like it's a big thing. Now, with this new Legend Tournament series coming out that they just introduced at the Bassmaster Classic, gosh dang it, I'm gonna have to probably sell my rods now, because you know, I'm looking at some of the length and powers and actions on these things, and I'm like, ooh, like those are in my wheelhouse. Like I like the way that is. And the thing about it is there, you know, as Victory is kind of that Sc3 Plus, you look at this Legend Tournament bass, and it's the new Sc4 Plus. So essentially meaning it's a light version of the blue rods, with some other upgrades as well from the reel seat and things like that. You'll kind of notice it's almost like a wind grippy tactile ferrule on the reel seat, and but it's those rods are sweet, right? And so they're a little bit higher. Like I said, there's just whatever you need at St. Croix, from the Bass X rods, like just getting into fishing. You know, if you want to get into bass fishing, $100 price point and you're good to go. Versus, you know, you want to move up to like a Triumph series, and then the Premier series, and then the Mojo series, and the Victory series. It's just like, how high, like how much do you see yourself needing? And I don't. The thing about it is I don't know. So I don't feel like you need the top level of everything to succeed in bass fishing.
Yeah.
You need what fits you. So, for example, 2 of the rods I've bought from St. Croix are Premier trigger rods that are 5'6" long, and they're $150, I think. Yeah, I think it's $150. And the reason I use those trigger rods is because I use them, I'll preface this. I use them when I am intending to be flipping wood or docks or skipping or whatever. You know, you pair them up with like a Daiwa, one of those SV103 TW reels that skip real well, that kind of stuff, right? And so basically what I've adopted in my fishing is, it's very not even technique specific, but condition specific, where if I'm going to be fishing a certain type of cover, I'll bring a certain type of rod, and just over time I've built up these different rods. So, you know, for example, Alum Creek, you know, I was always fishing offshore for those Columbus or Central Ohio Kayak Fishing League tournaments. And and I'd always be fishing offshore in all these tournaments. So I would get the really long rods, you know, your 7/6 and stuff like that. So I could launch baits out there, whatever I was throwing that day, whether it was like a, you know, Carolina rig or a Tokyo rig or a Nico rig or whatever, right? Like whatever I'm throwing, or like a hard head, so I can just launch it. And I don't necessarily need to have pinpoint cast. I'm fan casting at that point. And, you know, the good thing about St. Croix is just so many options. If you know what you're looking for, they have it. And, you know, the other thing is if you break them, like I broke one of my rods and like Matt said, he's broke his, so many of them have these 5-year warranties and even up to 15-year warranties on them, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what's great about it. Actually, my drop shot rod, I'm a little bit unconventional, I guess. My drop shot rod is a 7.6 Avid medium light.
Yeah.
And I popped the tip up of it off literally the second time I took it out. Went to set the hook on a fish, didn't notice a tree above it, tip goes. And it's as simple as filling out a form, emailing it to St. Croix, and they take care of you. And it's like you said, it's a $50 cost to get it done, but most companies will tell you, hey, sorry, it is what it is. Right. And it gives you the option, that's how actually I've gotten into 2 of my Legends. I had Avid X's that I broke just from either doing something stupid or just like a freak. I had one blank just implode when I hooked a set into a fish, blank in the middle of it, just blew up. And I called the guy. I've got a own guy that I just email for my repairs because I've done it so many times. He literally just says, yeah, just send me the form, man. If it breaks, send me the form. I've got your credit card. You're good. I was like, oh, this isn't great. But they have an upgrade option to where you pay $50, you get the same rod, or you pay depending on what rod you want, there's tiers of what you can. So I've actually upgraded 2 of my Avids to Legends. Doing it that way. Yeah. And how you explain, you know, with kayak angling, it doesn't matter. You don't have to have high-end gear, right? And it's what you want as an angler. And I think for me, one of the best examples is at the show where you handed me, hey, oh, look at this new panfish rod.
Right.
And I was like,
that thing was sweet.
Yeah, and it's right here.
That is such a sweet rod.
That's an extra fast too, right?
Yeah,
it's an extra fast,
medium light, extra fast.
See,
and
like $110 or something, wasn't it? Like out the door.
It was $110 out the door, and it's my new Ned rig setup.
That is a sweet rod too.
7.3 extra fast, and it is. I mean, you talk about a victory rod being light, which it is. This panfish rod, is lighter than light.
It feels like that's like a Mojo. I mean, that's literally like a nice Mojo, is what it is. But it's less money. It's crazy.
Yeah, and that's what threw it. And I was that guy for a long time, kind of like how you explained it. Like, oh, I have to have the best gear to do stuff. And then I kind of learned, like, yeah, there are some rods that feel better than others, but that panfish, ridiculously light, super sensitive, just feeling the tip. And I did a test when I got home, which I was a little scared, but at the same time, warranty, don't really care. I put a 5-pound weight on it, and I picked it up off the ground with my Vanford, and it was fine. I mean, she was wanting to bend over, but it was great. And it picked it up, and I was like, all right, I feel a little bit better about just throwing a hook into a fish and not caring.
Right. Well, I mean, sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're good.
No, I mean, last night I got to go fishing really for one of the first times, maybe the second time this year. And I was looking at my cranking setups, and I have a Legend glass, one of those golden orange rods or whatever.
Oh, I've got those.
But again, on a kayak, whenever I'm throwing this crankbait, like in tight quarters specifically, like if you want to get to the spot, the butt on it's this long, it's 8 inches long, and you're hitting your life jacket and all that.
Yep.
And I'm like, man, I got to figure something out. And so I started looking at my panfish rods, and I have this little spin cast panfish rod from St. Croix. It's a light, and I was looking at the action on it, and it's completely like it's parabolic because it's a light panfish rod. But I'll tell you what, I mean, I was throwing a flat-sided crankbait around last night, and it was like a 16 and something inch fat pre-spawn smallie. It just played it out.
I bet that was fun.
Oh, it was fun. And I'm like, targeted the casts were like the little butt on it's like 2 inches long. So like
Yeah.
it's like my trigger rod, so I can be super accurate with it. And is that not what you want to be? Like I would rather be accurate with it
Oh yeah.
than look the part, right? And that's the crazy thing about St. Croix is like I literally just go on their website all the time and I'm like, what is a rod that I could use for like this one specific technique that I think I want to do during this, like these 3 tournaments this year, right? So like, you know, like at Cowan this year, I'm going to be using that little light crankbait rod. You know, I'm going to be using those trigger rods, flipping wood when I have these $300+ rods sitting in my garage, not being used that tournament. But I've kayak fished enough to where I understand that if I'm 10 feet from a laydown, like I simply can't flip up because of the rod. Like you've got to be effective with it. And so, you know, different rods for different situations. And the good thing about St. Croix is not just the warranty, but you know, they're built here in Park Falls. They're built in Mexico from bottom up, like from the mandrels all the way up. And we don't outsource the stuff. It's not like we're sending stuff over to China and who knows what you get and then having another person put on the guides and another person put on the grip. It's everything's from the bottom up. And you know, from Fresnillo in Mexico and Park Falls, Wisconsin, you know, the Bass X are down in Mexico, and there's a lot of rods that are up in Park Falls. But the bottom line is St. Croix owns the whole production process. And that means a lot because each rod has over 30 people making it. And that's the crazy thing. It's like so many hands go on the making of one fishing rod, and that just it's like quality assurance 30 times to make sure it's
That's true.
Right. Yeah, very true. That's what I was gonna say. It's for something like this, a lot of people, because St. Croix will routinely throughout the year, and no matter what year it is, you'll find, like I did warranty replacements last year, and the guy I talked to, he's like, yeah, man, I'm not gonna have this rod till September. And it's happened in the past, and people will get upset, but you have to remember, just like you said, it's from step 1 to step 30 is all owned by St. Croix. It's owned by the same people that make it. The quality assurance, I've never found any other rod company that has such quality control to where it's very, very rare you'd ever get a bad blank, or it's very rare you'll get a guide that's out of line or something, or cracked, or you know, everything that would you get it. It's like you said, there's been 30 eyes on that rod making sure everything is right. And if it's not, I mean, I know for a fact if it's not, St. Croix will either scrap it or start over. You know, it's awesome how they focus on the quality control, because it overall gives the end user a better product.
No, I agree 100%. And honestly, that's why I'm really, I don't know, just fortunate to represent them. I mean, that's the only way I can describe it, is because I have seen St. Croix on the shelf since I've been a kid, you know, at wherever. Like, it doesn't matter if you're at Bass Pro or you're at anywhere, any specialty fishing store, you're going to see St. Croix there. And it's like, how do I get to represent these guys? That's pretty crazy. Like, for me, thinking about that. It's a real honor to be able to represent them. You know, but like I said, to each their own, and you got to do whatever is good for you, whatever you like. I mean, Brad, you're fishing Douglas rods. I mean, have you ever fished St. Croix? And I mean, how do they compare? Like, you know, because what makes Douglas for you versus St. Croix? And you know, because I don't know anything about other rods, you know.
Like
rods.
Well, I'm kind of in the same. I was going to say this earlier because I'm kind of in the same boat that you were, going from Berkeley to the other company to St. Croix. I used a lot of Fenwick HMGs back in the day, and then finally Brian put the Douglas in my hand. I'm like, wow, this feels amazing. So it's like my first like high-end rod that I've ever actually touched. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I can't really compare it to St. Croix. I've never really picked one up other than at the expo. But the other thing that I was going to say about that rod that I picked up at the expo was I kind of want to get your guys' opinion on it. The St. Croix rods. So I have an extra fast Douglas, and that St. Croix rod was an extra fast too, right?
Yeah.
Okay. it seems like St. Croix's rods are softer than a lot of other companies. You know what I mean?
So depending on
It's not a bad thing or anything.
So depending on the level of rod you get, I feel, and I've talked to like the 20-year St. Croix pro about this too. But like my blue rods are more stiff than my Mojos are, if that makes sense. Like my Mojos are more parabolic than my Legend Basses. And then like I don't know if you picked up like the Legend Extreme at the show, but it's like a broomstick, but it's like a medium, you know, and you're like, what in the world?
It's awesome.
It is awesome.
So
right?
nice.
But,
my God.
so I don't
It's
know
so
how
nice.
the formulations of the carbon that they use and why it seems to get stiffer as you go up in price point, but something about that carbon gets a little more maybe rigid, a little bit more sensitive, and so but you had picked up the just the one that Matt bought,
the panfish,
right? So that's $100 rod or $125 rod. And I think like as you would probably go up, you might notice like they get a little bit stiffer. And that was one of the things that the company that I was with, the rods were so before St. Croix, the rods were so parabolic and they were making me lose fish because I wasn't getting a hook in them. And so when I went to St. Croix, the first rods I bought were Avids and they just seemed like very stiff comparatively. So, I don't know, Brad, like, but I've never held a Douglas. And so very well, like Douglas could be stiffer than a St. Croix is, and so I don't really know.
So Brad, when we went out fishing the end of summer, when we were putting on a wacky rig clinic, we had switched rods. You were actually throwing my Avid X medium.
Okay.
I don't know if you remember, and then you were letting me use the X Matrix, which was weird because the X Matrix from Douglas kind of it's got the same parabolic feel of like a Mojo or like to me, our opinions about the Avid are a little different. I feel like Avids are almost like noodles if you get them in a lighter power. Like the medium heavies, the Avids and the Avid X's, they feel a lot stiffer. But I let you use that one. I remember you saying you're like, it feels stiffer. And I was like, yeah, it feels stiffer because you I think you caught 2 fish on it. And you said, yeah, it feels stiffer. And then you said, wow, I felt the bite though.
Yeah.
Which
I was going to say that I've learned since using these rods that the stiffer the rod, the more I like it for finesse fishing. So like my Ned rig rod, I will not use anything less than like extra fast now.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, I do the same thing with if I'm fishing outside of the really close flipping stuff that I was telling you guys about. Every rod I own is extra fast because in a kayak you're already giving ground up.
Yeah.
And so like the last thing you want is a rod that's going to be like bending all the way over on a some medium or medium heavy rod that's just bending halfway over when it's supposed to be an extra fast rod or something like that. So you do want a fast stiff rod if possible. I think in kayak fishing. That's
I agree.
Yeah, I found the same thing. Like my jerkbait rod was originally I was a big, and Brad will tell you this. Jerkbaits are my thing. I love them. I throw them year round. I will catch fish on them in June and July if I can. And it was always been a medium fast. And now I throw a Legend Tournament medium extra fast. And it's just so much better for the simple fact that, and I don't disagree with you. I used to be, I'm a what's the word? A traditionalist when it comes to a lot of rods. Like my cranking setups have always been medium moderates, and my Texas rigs are always medium heavy fast. It's just a do it all rod. And then my spinnerbait rod's the same way because that's what everyone's always used forever. And now stuff's changing and I'm learning a little bit more to where I'm kind of leaning toward that, to where I want almost every rod, if I can get it, be extra fast, unless I have to have like a moderate, which I still like
treble bait.
Yeah, I mean, I still like I'll throw my chatterbaits or my jackhammers on a moderate, and I'll still throw crankbaits, and it's usually my larger crankbaits I'll throw on a moderate. My smaller ones, I've actually found I like throwing them on a fast rod or extra fast rod, just so I can get the fish a little bit quicker. Because half the time with smaller crankbaits, they end up short striking it, and I can feel when they're short striking it and maybe get that back treble in instead of letting them play on the rod tip, because moderates have a place, but at the same time, you know,
You
it's
can lose a
kind
lot
of
of
how
fish on them though if you don't get a hook in them. You know, like I was watching Randy Blockett's YouTube videos. He's been posting those up for about a year and a half now, and he talks about he's like a pro bass angler and a longtime pro bass angler, right? So, but anyway, he talks about the fact that a lot of people should not be using moderates on crankbaits because you don't get hooks in them. And quite honestly, like, I mean, there are several times that I've been cranking, and again, out of a kayak, we have to think like we're giving up ground. And so I've lost fish on my glass rod where, and the only reason is if I was in a boat, I could crank on them. Like, I mean, you know, you can just hammer them on a boat, but on a kayak, you've got from, you know, 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock to really get them. Like you don't have the range of motion. So if you don't get them all the way, they don't get it well, like you might not land that fish. And so I have actually been cranking, like if I'm cranking not close cover stuff, I'll use my moderate fast Legend Tournament instead of my glass rod. And it works better for me. Similarly, like, you know, you said, Matt, you use your chatterbait rod in a moderate. I actually will use a faster and extra fast for my swim jigs, for my spinner baits, for my chatterbait, because I just feel like I'm not going to pull it away from them fast enough to not warrant a faster and extra fast. That's me. But again, that's how I fish. And so, and that's the thing we were talking about is like, you know, St. Croix really has something. They have so many rods. However you know, your experience on the water has shown you and how you react to fish. That is the beauty of it, is you can kind of tailor your little rod arsenal to whatever you need it to be. And under using St. Croix. And that's what I really enjoy about it, is just the ability to get whatever you need to make you efficient and effective on the water, because we don't get a lot of bites in Ohio. And so when you get a bite, you don't want to lose it, you know, and really you just want to get a bite in general. And so being efficient and then being effective once you get the bite is the name of the game. And I think over the last couple of years, I've really realized that, and it's made me a lot better angler. And I'm really looking forward to this year, because I feel very comfortable like with many different types of techniques at this point. And the rods are what allowed me to really expand. Like when I got back into St. Croix, it's like, man, I can throw a drop shot because I got a drop shot rod. I can throw a wacky rig. I can throw a Texas rig. I can throw a jig. I can throw a frog. I can throw a top water. But I only take like 5 or 6 rods with me. But before I get out there, I'm thinking in my head, like, you know, what should I be throwing? And you know, the rods are allowing me to do that and explore that more so than I've had the opportunity to before. So that's been a good thing for me, and just a good thing to make me better on the water overall, because rods are just one small portion of it, but you've got to feel confident in your presentations. And I talk about that. I was talking about that with Kurt Smith about a month ago, because I was rigging out my kayak and I was talking to him about it. And I was like, man, you know, I was talking about the show. That's where I was talking to him, because he was working in my booth with me. And so we were talking about rigging our kayaks out and stuff. And I said, you know, everything I do now is just about presenting a bait as effectively as I can. And if I can do that, I'm going to increase my overall like ability and effectiveness on the water. If I can put myself in the best position to present these baits as naturally as the way the fish would want it as possible. And so those rods have just been a real game-changing aspect of my fishing, I think. And I haven't had the chance to fish a lot of tournaments and stuff in the last couple of years because I've had a bunch of kids and stuff. But I think that my wife's going to let me fish some this year. So I'm just excited to be able to apply some of that. I guess I fish the COKFL stuff, but those are just Wednesday nighters. But still, I'm really excited to get into some like BKFT stuff this year and just see like how I can start applying a lot of the stuff that I've learned over the last few years specifically, because I was just a and not Brad, I know you're a river guy, but I was just a river guy, and all I would do is chuck a spinner bait, and
Yeah.
that's great, and that is fishing, like there's no doubt about that. But
Yeah.
I was admittedly very one-dimensional up to about 2018, I would say, and then I started really like forcing myself to adopt lake bass fishing.
Mhm.
And so it's been good the last 4 years. I mean, I've learned a lot. I've done a lot of research, and I'm really excited. I think this year's the year that I've got the gear I need, I've got the knowledge I need, and let's kind of see how it works out. So I'm excited to get the tournament season started. That's for sure.
I can
Heck
tell
yeah,
you what you just said. It is the 2018. You throw in spinner baits, and then you dove into adopting other techniques. That is the blackest black hole of information that is on the face of the world. When I started diving in, like it was like I dove so far in, I've popped out in Japan.
Yeah,
Stuff that I use, like I'm using Japanese lures. Like, oh well, this is working great.
Oh, I
It's
am
starting to get adopted here. Like it just comes out of like
I'm
I
not
show
there
people.
yet.
I literally show people this bait, and the first thing I showed Brad, and he was like, "That looks like something," and I was like,
That looks
"Yeah,
weird.
it does look like something," and that's almost everything. But this is the depths cover scat, and no one here knows what this is. And
dude,
it
that
looks
comes
like
up on my I know it. I've seen that. That comes up on my feed for
you-
Facebook. Like
you need to fish it.
ads.
It's
Ads?
amazing. It literally
Yeah,
just
I'm like,
looks like
what
a
is
little
that thing?
blob. That's
So
all
that's
it
probably
is.
why I get that. You said that's Japanese.
It's JDM stuff. Yeah, it's from
Okay,
depths.
so I just bought like a bunch of Dua Realis, like little tiny jerk baits for
Yeah.
like red fishing and stuff,
I
and
love it,
during the
dude.
spawn, and so that's probably why I've been getting these ads for like I had no idea that was Japanese, but I'm like, what is this thing that keeps popping up on my screen? But
I
the
didn't.
point
Yeah.
is, with rods, like I got a rod that I can fish these small little jerk baits with and all this kind of stuff because I like jerk bait fishing too. And
Is
Oh,
is
it's
that who
amazing.
makes the spy baits too?
yeah, so
Yep.
I have
I need to get
so
some of
actually
those.
I should be set up in the garage. I should have got this going in the garage, but I could show you guys some of the stuff. But yeah, so they have like the G Fix and then just like the normal spin bait 80s and 90s. And I use like a prism gill pattern on them. And then I got some little, they're called like I don't even know. I forget the name. It starts with an R, but these little tiny jerk baits they're like 2 inches long. They're hard bodied 2-inch jerk baits. And so, I took them out to like a little clear pond to test them out. And I bought like 4 of each, like medium divers and then like shallow divers. And they're pretty little wicked looking things. So I'm looking forward to that. Just as like just like a little situational thing. Like if I see myself like fishing up shallow around some clear beds or something, like those things will get pounded. Like there's just no doubt about it. So, but I got a little rod set up for it and stuff like that. It's actually one of my little crappie rods, one of my panfish rods that I throw it on. But yeah, I mean, it's just so I mean, for St. Croix, I probably have. I mean, this is over like my whole 12 years of kayak fishing and stuff. But I mean, I've got a 10-foot crappie rod. I've got a big flipping sticks. I got all sorts of stuff at all different price points, and I just really enjoy. I don't know, just enjoy the art of fishing, and specifically over the last 4 years when I've been diving into different techniques and trying to make myself perfect them because it does take time and just only fishing that technique for a while. But I mean, I feel extremely confident. Like, I've got the rod, I can go and throw a drop shot in weeds if I have to. Similarly, I can go throw a drop shot in perfectly clear rocky terrain if I have to. I can fish 30 feet deep or I can fish 3 inches deep. But having different techniques and knowing you have the rod to be able to effectively fish that technique is just, you can't say enough about what that does to your confidence, like going into a tournament and just knowing like I'm gonna catch fish. Like if it doesn't work this way, I'm gonna go and catch fish a different way using one of the techniques. And I do. Luckily, these rods have kind of opened my eyes a little bit, and I think that after I stepped away from that other team, and kind of started looking at it, I was like, oh my gosh, like just simply looking at what the rods, like if you look at just one of the rap sheets of one of the models, it's just like, man, there's so many things I'm not doing. And it kind of made me start to realize like I really need to become better at many different things if I actually want to consider myself like a fisherman and not just, I mean, not that chucking a spinnerbait is not a fisherman, but again, a multi-dimensional,
Well-rounded.
yeah,
Well-rounded,
I wanna
yeah.
have more of a well-rounded nature to my abilities, and the rods were at the base of that. So
That's exactly where I am in like my fishing journey, I guess you call it. Like I'm just starting to branch out and try all this different stuff that I've never actually tried.
yeah, it's a rabbit hole. I mean, and it's not just one; it's many rabbit holes.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
you're
yeah.
gonna spend so
tunnels.
much money.
Yeah, when you
Oh,
know somebody like Matt, you're like, oh, now I got to try this.
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, you do though, like, and that's, I see Matt's stuff back behind it. Like, I have my walls look exactly the same where I have all my fishing stuff, and it's one of those things where you just you kind of like tinker around, and then you like dial it in a little bit, and then you modify what you think you want, and then it's just like, I want this jig to look just this way, and then you like kind of tie it up, and it's like, oh, I want to make it look a little bit different, or I don't know. There's just so many. It's a real art. Like, that's the best way you can describe it. It's like art and math and physics or something all combined. Like,
yeah, and like part imagination. I've seen guys putting like diamond tails on jigs and stuff now.
Yep.
What's a diamond tail?
Like a finesse worm.
Oh yeah. Oh, of course, yeah. So, I mean, so I've been messing around with jigs lately and tying some stuff up, and for the spring specifically, like with some living rubber and using like different trailers and like trying them out in the sink, and like then if they look good enough, they'll take them out to like a little clear practice pond. And man, I got some of them that are so good and well dialed, and I'm like, that looks perfect. But like, it's just so stupid. Like, I'll buy like living rubber online, and then I'll like, just all these different colors. But it's such a fun little hobby, and that's why I tell my wife, I'm like, it's kind of like a hobby, and it's kind of like a competitive thing when tournament season's going to come around. And but it's a lifestyle. It's an absolute lifestyle. And I told my wife, I was like, I'm just not willing to ever compromise on this lifestyle, because I love it, and it's something that I need to do. And tying it back to the rods, like the rods allow me to just one part of it, but they allow me to be effective at the most important part, which is the catching fish part. And so I just can't say enough about them, and just how, like, again, how grateful I am to be able to represent them, and hopefully I represent them well. This year, I'm not super active on Facebook and stuff like that anymore, because I just don't have the time. I got 2 hours of sleep last night from 12 to 2, and my kids woke up at 2 and they were up till 5. So then that was time to wake up. But it's one of those things that, but when I can, I'm really happy with where I'm at with it. But are you guys doing any tournaments this year or anything like that? I know, Brad, we might knock out that Indian Lake tournament possibly with a little partner duo.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that today, actually. I'm looking forward to that. I've never fished Indian Lake.
Oh, I don't care what you say, Aaron. It's terrible.
It's not great.
I hate that lake. I hate that lake.
But is any Ohio lake actually great? Like, I can.
Okay, I'll give you that. Most of our lakes are annoying, but Indian is the most annoying, because you'll go pre-fish it, and all the fish will be where they are for 3 days, and then tournament day will come, and they will all disappear. Yeah. Every single one of them, and they'll be somewhere different.
You like bass boat fish it or something, or what?
Me?
Yeah.
Say that again. Sorry.
Did you like fish it out of a bass boat, or like when did you?
I fished it out of a bass boat, and then I fished it out of a kayak a couple years ago.
Oh, okay.
And it's fun. It's weird when I go out there to just fish. Like when I went kayak fishing, I just went fun fishing, just to go fish and revisit it in a kayak, and I was catching fish, and it was awesome. And then when I was younger, I did some tournaments with a buddy out of his boat, and we'd pre-fish it for 2 days, and we'd find them, and we'd mark them on his old Humminbird graph as best we can.
Well,
and then they'd just be gone. And
it's not just gone, it's gone. If you do that anywhere in Ohio, You're not. Like, pattern fishing's not a thing in Ohio. It's
Yeah.
Yeah, to an
Ohio's
extent, I'll give you
very.
that.
I mean, Ohio. Now there are some lakes and reservoirs where you can pattern fish. I will say that. But if you go to like an Indian lake, it's a numbers game. It's like you have to make as many flips as you can effectively, and you're going to come across the fish. Like, during certain times of the year, can you go out on like Alum Creek and go out on like one of the shallow points out there that go in the middle of the lake? Yes, you can, and catch fish in the summer doing that. But most of the time, it is a numbers game in Ohio. I don't believe it. Honestly, like, I don't really believe in pre-fishing in Ohio. Like, I know it sounds stupid, but like, what I do believe in is going to a lake and like getting the layout and kind of like looking like, okay, there's a nice looking spot, mental note it. But like, am I going to go in there and flip around? Heck no, because there's probably only 2 fish in there. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've learned.
I don't know.
I've learned with Ohio. It's my pre-fishing now. If I go, because I'm going to do some of the Cincinnati Trail this year.
Okay.
And my pre-fishing now is going to the lake and just kind of graphing it. That's all I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I'm not necessarily looking for fish. I'm looking for structure on the bottom, stuff along those lines. Now, when I was down south, I would take a hook. Like when I was in the Marine Corps, I'd fish boat tournaments down there, and I would go pre-fish a lake 3 or 4 days before, before the cutoff for pre-fishing. And I would take a hook and I would break my barb off and I would shake fish off.
Yep.
And I took that thinking here, kind of like what you said. And I did that here a couple times, and I would catch, I remember there was, where was it at? I think it was at Rocky. I went and I got on a great bite, and I was shaking fish off. And it was maybe a mile stretch of shore. I was getting fish. There's plenty of cover. It was awesome. And I went back for, day of, and nothing was there. And it's exactly what you said. Like there was fish there. They were spread out, but those were probably the only fish in those spots.
It's just, they don't go in big packs, I feel like, in Ohio, because our lakes aren't set up like that. We don't have riverine lakes like, Tennessee Chain and stuff, where they'll go deep and then they go up on the ledges to feed and they go down and it's current dependent. We don't have that. We just have like big stagnant bowls of water that don't.
That's exactly it.
That's all we have. But we don't have current that flows through these lakes, or if we do, it's very, very, very slight. Like we might have some on Alum or Hoover sometime, but it's not like it's heavy current. And so you look at that, and it's like, okay, so what does that mean? Well, it means that fish aren't going to go down in like they're not going to go down in like the ditches and stuff like that and then come up to feed based on any of that current. They're going to find whatever, like you said, little piece of structure that's off in the middle of somewhere, some little foundation in the middle of the lake, and they're going to kind of hang there. And then will they come up and kind of feed from time to time on the shallower spots? Yeah, they will. But I don't know.
I've noticed in Ohio, the ones that come up to feed are always the younger fish. You can tell because they're either not the bigger fish, or they just seem, I'm not a fish biologist, but I just feel like they're younger, because you'll see them crash in the banks in late spring, early summer. And then if you pay attention, because I like reading about fish and learning about what their techniques or their habits are. And largemouth are an ambush predator, so they'll find something they can sit behind or get in tall grass and come up and hit something. And you can see in some of the smaller ponds where you have the smaller largies crash the bank at trying to chase bait fish and stuff. And if you have the glasses to do it, you can look and you can see the water break, and you can see a bigger fish just sitting there. And he's stuck up on one little piece of grass or one stick, and he's just stuck there, and he's waiting for those bait fish to come a little bit too far, hits something, goes right back.
Yep.
And
those bigger fish, I also find that those bigger fish will not feed during the day either. Like those bigger fish feed at night, and then they go and they hang out during the day, and they might come up shallow at night, but they'll just go back to their little spot during the day. And unless you've got like a forward facing sonar, they might just be suspended out in the middle of nowhere, just kind of hanging during the day.
I noticed early morning bites, the big ones come out too, especially like down at Cowan Lake and stuff like that. You can get them off the rocks and off of like random like weed patches real early in the morning.
No, for sure. And I think it's just that's probably the end of their feeding window, and then And then, then they go and hunker down for the day. And then all of the tournament anglers come out and we catch a bunch of 12 inchers all day, like, because that's all there is. But again, if you know that, like at a lake like Cowan, and you go out in summertime, you go out in the middle of the lake on that big, like, hump out there that goes through the lake. I mean, and you know how to ledge fish a little bit, or you can take some of that south knowledge you got, and you can probably catch a few. You can probably that would be like a situation where you could find a few fish bunched up. But like if you go off and your plan is to go and flip, just a certain kind of bush at Cowan or like a certain type of laydown. It's like
everybody does that.
Everybody does that, right? Like that's just picking off a bunch of random fish. That's not a pattern, So it's very, not to say like there's no close to the shore pattern fishing in Ohio, but I mean Indian Lake, it's like good luck dock fishing pattern. Like there's 500,000 docks on that lake. Now, could you find like maybe the metal docks are better than the wood docks, or vice versa, or the floating docks are maybe a little bit better, possibly. But that lake in Ohio, like our lakes aren't big enough to expand on that anywhere. It's not like you can be like, oh, they're in the backs of creeks. Well, Cowan's got two.
Yeah.
Like,
that's true.
Like fishing Lake Cumberland, it's like, oh, I'm gonna go run that pattern. No, you're not.
Yeah, I know.
What do you do, right? So you have to be extremely versatile, and you might catch 3 crankbait fish off of wood, but then you very well might have to go out to that hump in the middle of the lake and throw a drop shot for an hour and a half and pick 2 more off or whatever. And so, and that's where, like I said, these rods have been just amazing for me because I do have the flexibility to do that if I want to do that. And fishing that COKFL stuff, I was relatively successful at it this past year, and it was a good time. And but I would fish just different stuff all the time, like just depending on I bring actually up to 11 rods. Because if I was fishing offshore, I didn't need to be close to trees and stuff, and so I just cycle through until I found what they'd want. And but it's junk fishing is literally all it is in Ohio. It's just junk.
Yeah, it's funny. You finally do get out of Ohio, and it's just like, man, you feel like a good fisherman. Like going down to Dale Hollow, you're like cranking on all these fish, and then you catch 2.
Oh yeah. That's what last year at Dale Hollow. We went down there, and the first day I was getting fish on the end of the line. I was just having a bad day. It's one of those days where no fish, no hook set you do is ever good enough. You could rip the bait through the fish's face, and it's still not good enough. And I lost like 6 fish. And then the next day it started raining, and I was like, I'm an Ohio angler in my element, because no one else was catching anything, and I was. The pattern I got before was fish were shallow, and I started flipping shallow. And I remember I caught 4 fish that day, 4 keepers, and I caught a bunch of other fish. And I remember thinking, I was like, I wouldn't be able to do this in Ohio all day long. Just flip the banks and just travel down a bank and flip a bug up into a bank and get consistent bites.
And everywhere. You can't. And so the crazy thing is I would watch a lot of the COKFL guys. It was like a conveyor belt at some of these lakes. Like you'd have like a guy every 25, 50 yards.
Yep.
And they'd all it's just, and I'm like, man, I got to do something different. Like, so I just go right offshore, and I would just find something and just fan cast and just try to figure it out. And it proved to be successful because I was fishing for fish that nobody else was fishing for. Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's just such a big thing. And to me, that was such a confidence builder tournament wise, because I was like, okay, I can do that. Like, I know I can do that. I don't just have to sit on the bank. Now in the spring, that's what you want to be doing. You want to be up there flipping and doing all that stuff. But once June hits, like, get off the bank and do some different things. And I think that's where having a few different little tools in my arsenal has really helped. And I think it'll help this year.
Yeah. And I like to say with St. Croix, whenever I'm talking to somebody and they say, what kind of rod do you recommend? And I always say, there's thousands of rod on the market, but I can tell you go to St. Croix because it's like an ice cream shop. There is a flavor for everything. No matter what you want to do, they either have a technique specific rod or they have utilitarian rods. One thing I wanted to talk about, I know we're getting close, but one thing I wanted to talk about was like the yak rods. I think those are awesome. And there's been other companies who've done shorter, like the trigger style rods and things like that, shorter rods. But the yak rods are to me is a game changer when they came out, because you're getting a super sensitive rod with such a short butt. So
Right.
I had a flipping stick. I had broken it, and then because I break all my rods all the time, I had broken it, got a warranty replacement on it, and then my buddy wanted to use it, and he took it, and then I was like, happy birthday, you can have it. But it was a short butt yak rod and a medium heavy, and it was a Mojo Bass, and it's a yak rod, and it was stiffer. And I was using that to pitch and flip with, because the butt was so short, I could just flip like normal and not worry about it hitting something, or I didn't have to stand up to flip. I could sit down and flip if I wanted, which was awesome. So it's St. Croix is the ice cream shop of rods, because they make something for everything.
It's good ice cream. Like, that's the
It
thing.
is
It's not like they're crappy rods. It's not like, oh, they're just pumping them out because.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things like they talk about in like the pro staff meetings, like when they have them every quarter, like they'll say, we're replacing the old panfish rods, or we're replacing the icon rods, or the blue rods. And they're like, we don't take it lightly, because those rods are like iconic, or we're replacing these avid surf rods that have been here for 10 years, and we're replacing them with, the siege rods. It's like, we don't take that lightly, because they have such a following, but they're like, we do it because we know we can make it just a little bit better, or just a little bit better in these 3 different ways. And they do. And that's the crazy thing, is they absolutely do. And, I still find myself like, I actually cut the butt off of one of my spinning rods. Yeah.
All right.
So I can skip under docks easier with the Senko. So literally, so like, because if I was sitting here, throwing my rod like last year, and I kept, hitting my life jack. I'm like, man, I need a different rod to do that. I'm like, there's not a rod out there. So I was like, all right, I took my Dremel and cut it right at the cork. And
you're braver than me.
And so I cut one of my Mojos, cut the butt right off of it. It's my medium light, extra fast. So instead of 6'10", it's now 6 foot. But
that's funny.
It's gonna be a sweet little skipping rod, though.
Did you put anything on the end?
No, it's smooth. It looks it's good. What I might do is put like a little rubber stopper, because the blank's hollow, so I'll just put like a little rubber stopper in there. But I was, like I said, like I am very in tune to the way I want to fish certain things, and
that's good.
And I really want to make sure that I get a setup that's conducive to that. So
that
I know
just
that
gives me chills.
We need
there's a product out there called the Rod Saver, which is, I lost a rod at Dale Hollow last year. I went in and got it. That was terrible, but whatever. Yeah. It had a Shimano CI4 on it, and it was a legend tournament. And I was like, I'm not losing that setup. It's only 6 foot dot water. I'll just go in. I'm 6'2". I'll be fine.
Yeah.
And so I went in and got it, and I was talking to a guy from Paddle and Fin. I think it might have been Jimmy. It was either Jimmy or can't remember, but he was like, yeah, they have this thing called the Rod Saver. If you drop a rod, it has like 40-pound braid in it, and it has a little balloon that pops up and it'll float your rod. And I was like,
rod thing. Yeah.
And I was like, man, that's awesome. And he was like, yeah, all you gotta do is just, you cut the butt off. I was like, nah, man, I'm good. I'll just tether him up. And I literally, like, that night in the RV sleeping for the next day of tournament, I had a dream that I cut the end of one of my Mega Bash rods off, and it just exploded. And I was like, oh geez, son, I can't do it. And so you're braver than I.
No, and I'm just telling you, if you ever get a rod that like it breaks or something like that, just cut the butt off and then hold it and flip a little bit, and you're gonna be like, holy crap, like I can do whatever I want with this rod. Like literally, it's so like you can pinpoint cast so easy. And like with a Senko, like a skipping Senko rod, like I don't need to be able to like leverage the butt against my arm to like crank it. Like I would never do that with, like, for example, like I said, I use those trigger rods for up close stuff, but I would never use a trigger rod offshore. Like that'd be stupid, because like I'm trying to like sweep a huge cast or sweep a huge hook set. But so they're two completely different purposes. And similarly, like I'm never gonna cut the butt off of one of my spinning rods for my offshore stuff that I use. So
Yeah.
but for the close in stuff, maybe think about cutting that.
Hey, it sounds like you got some ideas, and you know what you want dialed in. You should go to St. Croix and be like, "Hey, let's make a Stiger series."
Well, I
There
would
you
like to have them expand the kayak series is what I'd really like them to have them do. Because I mean, although it is a great series, there's probably 6 rods, 8 rods in that whole series. I'd like to see them get extra fast stuff in that series.
I'm sure they will. It seems like everybody's going that way.
Yeah, and so they probably will. And honestly, all their new offerings, like there's so many, like it's very interesting. Like they've really captured like the 7.1 to 7.6 market, which is a kind of a forgotten about market in bass fishing. Like they have a lot of these 7.3, 7.4s, which are just such effective rods if you're fishing deeper water or offshore. Like that length is perfect. Like I can't wait to get one of those 7.3 medium extra fast rods and just hammer fish with it, like offshore. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that, but it'll be good. Whenever
they're starting to make moves. I mean, they have the new Legend. They have the Legend Extreme, which that thing is choice. It's choice. Yeah. It's super expensive, but it's choice.
It really is. I mean, I would never carry one on a kayak, but I
mean, I carry Mega Bass Destroyer P5s and X7s, but I've learned. You can ask Brad. Everything that's on the kayak now, if it's not screwed on, it has some type of tether on it. Because in the last year, I've lost 2 rods in the water, got them both back, and a catch board that I lost in 4 foot of water with a soot bottom, and I watched the board just disappear. Slow motion. It was tournament day, and I literally just caught a fish, and I was like, this is just great. So yeah, everything's super tethered now. But yeah, I mean, it's like you said, I like how they really think about, hey, we're changing this line, but they're doing it because they know they can make it better. Because you're not wrong. There's a cult following with St. Croix rods, especially the fly fishing guys. Whenever they change a fly fishing line, it's
they hated it at the show. Like there was guys just ticked about it. Like they would like, oh, we don't make that rod. And we're like, what? Why'd you stop making that rod? Like that's the best rod in the world, and yada yada. Yeah. They absolutely, and it was all the fly guys. You're exactly right.
I mean,
it was nobody else except for the fly guys. It wasn't the muskie guys. It wasn't the bass guys or the walleye guys. The fly guys. They're very particular.
The fly guys. I mean, you talk like you set certain things up a certain way, and then even me with bass fishing stuff. There's certain stuff I'm different than you are. Fly guys are almost religious about how they do stuff, and if they have a rod that they've been using X amount of years and they have 6 of them, and somebody changes it. My buddy's a St. Croix fly guy. It's all he throws, but he won't. He's got a broken tip that he just like is trying to fix himself because they don't make his rod anymore. He's like, it can't be as good.
Is it the Wild River? Dude, is it the Wild River rod?
Yep, it is.
That's what everybody was ticked about, that they stopped making it. Now, here's the thing though, and they make this clear at the pro staff meetings. They say that we never discontinue rods, we retire rods. It's just a game of but they'll bring them back. They say we reserve the right to bring them back if we want to. So they could very well bring back the Wild River. I mean,
we'll see. They'll make a ton of people happy. I can imagine they'll come out of hiding to get a new rod again.
Yeah. Well, when you guys, when the weather turns a little bit here, Brad, are you doing any other tournaments except for that Indian Lake one? Or I know
I don't have anything. I don't have anything planned. You might see me at Cowan Lake.
Yeah,
I don't know. We'll see.
I mean, that's the Cincy event for them.
Yeah,
it's kind of a interesting format where they go to Acton one day and then Cowan the other day.
Yeah, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, that's weird.
That's a lot of driving, but
it's a lot of gas and money.
It is. But I don't mind. Actually, here's the thing. Like, I actually don't mind that, because if you think about it, like a lot of these like multi-lake tournaments just end up being like online tournaments, because you've got like 6 lakes in play, and it's just like which lake fishes the best. This at least eliminates that wild card of like, don't pick the wrong lake, like, so at least everybody has to fish the same lakes, which actually I really do like. But it's gonna be a lot of gas, and I'm gonna have to sleep in my truck away from the campsite one day, because I'm not gonna drive back and forth twice just to go back and
you're what, 2 hours away?
Yeah. So So I'm 2 hours. So, but what I was gonna do is just camp at Cowan and just probably just fish Cowan for the tournament. But
Yeah.
now since I have to go to Acton, I'm not going to. I'll probably go to Acton that night and just sleep in the parking lot in my truck or something, and then I'll go to Cowan the next day or vice versa, like whichever one I decide to do. Or I'll camp at Cowan the first night and then go sleep in the parking lot at Acton the second night or whatever. But
Go to Acton the day that nobody else is going. That place is small and it gets hammered.
That's I definitely I'm like, it's just a little bowl. Like it's just like a little 2 mile long. It's like Kaiser Lake, basically.
Yep, pretty much. Except
that's.
I don't know what I would say if it was better in Kaiser or not, but it might be better in Kaiser.
Well, Kaiser's pretty good. Honestly, I've never fished Acton, so I fished Kaiser quite a bit.
I think you'll like it. I fished it last year and it was all right.
Is it like a? Well, I mean, it's gonna be in the spring, so I'll have to. That's the other thing is if it was in the summer, you could go offshore and fish and find fish, but it's right pre-spawn, like right before the spawn's probably gonna be happening in like a couple weeks. Mm-hmm. So those fish are gonna be shallow, like they're gonna be 6 feet or less. You know, it's like, well, everybody's gonna be right in the same spot. Just flip. It's like
you're gonna have the conveyor belt going. And
it's gonna be conveyor belt fishing, and those are my least favorite types of tournaments. But it is what it is.
Yeah, it's all part of bass fishing, unfortunately, or bass fishing tournaments.
Yeah.
So, Aaron, is there anything else you want to say before we get out of here?
Nothing. I appreciate the opportunity. Talk with a couple of buds, and obviously we'll be seeing each other around. But thanks for providing the platform, and just want to say again, thanks to St Croix for being who they are, and always thankful to be a part of that team. So.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we really appreciate you coming on. I've got some. I tried it last week and didn't go as planned, but this week it'll be a lot better. So, if you had one St. Croix rod and one bait, and that's all you could fish, what are you picking?
I don't want to give this up, but I'll give you.
Okay, second.
No, I'll give you a general. All right, I'll give you a general spinning setup and a general bait casting setup. If it was a bait casting, it'd be at my 7-1 medium, heavy, extra fast casting rod, and it would be with a tube. And then my spinning setup would be now this is current, but I have not done the 7.3 medium extra fast yet. I'm sure it'll turn to this, but for now it's my 6.8 medium extra fast Mojo spinning rod. And I like throwing a Senko bait. Again, I'm not going to tell you how I rig these things, but those would be my bait casting setup. That would be my spinning setup, and those would be the baits I'd be using with them. And oh man, but I've also developed a couple other techniques. So but if I could only have one of each, I could go. Yeah, that's what I'd pick. But I like fishing other things too, though. Like, so that's where like the versatility comes in. But that's where I would land and feel comfortable if I could only do one.
Yeah, that's cool.
There you go. Yeah, threw me for a loop with a tube on a again traditional guy. Threw me through a loop with a tube on a casting setup.
Yeah,
I'm strictly spinning for my tubes. So
yeah, me too.
There you go.
Yep. No. Well, again, I'm not telling you how I'm rigging it. Or into casting setup. We'll just put it that way. So, I mean, you could throw out spinning, but it's just more effective casting. So, but I've definitely caught a lot of fish that way, and so yeah.
Well, there you go. Awesome.
Right on, guys.
Well, guys, I think we're gonna end it here, man. So good episode. Thanks for coming on again. If you guys made it this far, thanks for listening, and we'll see you guys next week.
Thanks for tuning in to another killer episode here on Paddle and Fin. Be sure to drop a 5-star rating, a thumbs up, or smash that subscribe button on any platform you're listening in on. Be sure to check us out on Waypoint TV, waypointtv.com. Make sure you sign up for the Fantasy Kayak Fishing League at paddleandfin.com/fantasy. You could support this show through Patreon, patreon.com/paddleandfin. Don't forget to check out the website, paddleandfin.com. Catch us on YouTube. If you got a question, comment, or want to see a future guest on the show, be sure to email us at paddleandfin@gmail.com. Shout out to our show supporters, Yak Gadget. You can check out all the fine kayak accessories at yakgadget.com. Pelican Professional. For all your cases, coolers, and lighting needs, go to pelican.com. Rocktown Adventures, your Midwest premier paddle sports destination. Go to rocktownadventures.com. Eastport Marina, the beautiful destination on Dale Hollow Lake. If you're looking for lodging, kayaks, kayak accessories, or anything fishing related on the beautiful Dale Hollow Lake, go to eastport.info. And Jigmasters Jigs. When in doubt, get the jig out. Go to jigmasters.com and fill your tackle boxes today.